What is going on, Tender Crew? My name is Billy the Squid, and imagine a world without invaders. That's right, I want to have a little bit of a thought experiment with you guys, okay? I want you to imagine you went to bed, and you slept extremely poorly because Noob Slayer 69 came into your world the previous day, invaded you, and took 9,000, or over 9,000.
It's over 9,000! 9,000!
Of your sweet, sweet, hard-earned souls from you. You wake up the next morning, you log into the game, and realize that functionality has been ripped completely out of not only that game, but all the games in the FromSoftware catalog.
Seems a bit drastic.
And Elden Ring in the future is not going to have this functionality. You are overjoyed, you are ecstatic, but how does this actually affect the FromSoftware games in general? That's what I want to have this conversation about, because I get this comment on a lot of my videos, and on my most recent video, it also rang at home that there is a niche of the player base that would rather these games just be a solo experience or even a co-op experience with no PvP or invasions involved at all. And I want to see, is that actually a good idea? Let's dive in, shall we? So let's start it off with only solo play. There's not going to be any co-op, there's not going to be any invasions, there's not going to be any PvP. The only online functionality that this game has is messages and bloodstains. And while you can have some fun with messages, leaving like a little cheeky note, jump here for treasure and see how many people will jump to their death. And then the bloodstains can show that, hey, this is actually a death trap, and it kind of balances each other out. There is some fun to be had in that, and both of these, for the most part, are 100% beneficial to the player. While there are some cheeky messages out there, bloodstains 100% show that there are dangers around and kind of give you a glimpse on what happened. All good things. Also, considering that there's no more co-op and no more PvP or invasions, FromSoftware's job just got significantly easier. They are just making your standard action RPG at this point. No more weapon balancing to make it so that one weapon isn't one-shotting people in PvP. No more enemy balancing for co-op groups whenever they go into a boss with 3 people and it's just one lowly little boss. They don't have to scale the boss's health and damage to meet so that there's actually a challenge still. It is just one person in the game. And that might be nice. That might be very nice. But at the end of the day, once you do 1, 2, or 3 runs of this game, depending on what builds you want to go, build variety is really the only replayability factor that these games have at that point. And yes, the speedrun community and the challenge run community are always going to be there, and they will keep the game going on, say, your streaming services like Twitch or YouTube. But for people that don't speedrun or challenge run, it's just going to be builds, doing different builds going into the game. And that is inevitably going to lead to people moving on at some point.
Bye, Felicia.
Then what is the point of even going and continuing to play? Unless you just want to relive the good days and you genuinely enjoy the game experience, which there's plenty of people like that. But for most people, they're going to play the game a few times and then move on. And there goes your player base. So what about adding in co-op? FromSoftware decides, yeah, we're going to throw in co-op. Co-op's fun. People like to interact socially online.
Going to reset my internet. Don't run your mouth a little bit too much.
Let's give them the functionality to do that, but only in a positive sense. Well, there's a lot of good things that can come out of co-op. You can play the game with your friends. That's always fun. People enjoy that camaraderie of overcoming a challenge together, especially if it's a challenge that you weren't able to do solo. This gives you the route to bring people in that could potentially help or carry you through to the end. All good things I don't think should be removed, and I'm glad they're not. Also, if there's only co-op, that means that all of the PvP covenants and everything related to that are going to be gone. Poof, finito, kaput, done. But there is room for them to potentially expand upon co-op covenants. Say they added in a covenant into the game that only has co-op, okay? Say Dark Souls 3 only has co-op, and there's a covenant that if you join it, you get the chance to be summoned in to help somebody during a boss fight whenever they run out of their last Estus flask.
Help me! Help me!
Potentially saving their boss fight and being the victor of the day. Or potentially a co-op group that whenever you go up to a boss room, there are going to be multiple signs, and it just makes it so that it's easier to find co-op people for bosses in general. These could all be very good things, but once again, the co-op doesn't add any longevity to the life cycle of these games. Yes, being able to play through with somebody, you say you've played through the game 3 or 4 times, And then one of your friends is like, hey, I want to try this out. Do you want to play through it with me? Abso-fucking-lutely you do. So you load it up. You get another playthrough out of it. That is wonderful. It is a little better than what the solo play only type of game goes. But at the end of the day, there's still not a reason outside of introducing new players, or potentially you just enjoy being a friendly cooperator and helping people out with bosses. Maybe that's what gets you going in these games. Maybe that'll keep you playing for 4 or 5 months into it. But it's not a long-term goal. Eventually people will move on. Eventually there won't be people that you need to help anymore, or that group will be so small that it is taking forever and you just have better things to do with your time. So what if FromSoftware brings in PvP, not invasion-based PvP, but like an arena system? What will this do with the game? Well, in a good side of the coin, it will give a competitiveness to the game. That is what keeps games going longer than their single-player runtime, is when there is a PvP-centered mode. People are competitive by nature, especially us gamers, and we want to see if we can outdo other gamers. That's just by nature a fun thing to do. And it'll also give those builds that you've been doing 2 or 3 runs doing some added longevity. And it will also give those builds that you've been working on a little bit of added longevity, because you will now have different playstyles for different types of dueling that you want to do. It could be a lot of fun, and it is definitely a good thing. But the problem with only arena-based combat, in this case, is a few different facets. One, metas happen. And in any type of an arena setting where there's not any outside forces at work, it's just 1v1 or 2v2s potentially, then you're going to have a meta, and that is going to make things stale, okay? On top of that, you are also going to have a large range of maps, especially with Elden Ring coming out and it having a jump button. Environmental verticality and stuff like that is going to play even more of a focus than it has in any of the past FromSoftware games as far as PvP and arenas go. And back to when I said the meta was going to be a problem, that is going to create balancing issues. And how are you going to balance the game around that and also keep the PvE players happy? Where you nerf a weapon and then another weapon rises to the top of the meta. Well, you nerf that. Do you go the nerf it until nothing's fun anymore? Or do you go the overpowered until everything is viable? And then arenas become stale matches of like one-shots or gimmick builds and stuff like that. Arenas, while they are good, and honor dueling is a lot of fun, there are a lot of issues with having it being the only PvP system in this style game and for many other games. And unless FromSoftware is going to be constantly updating maps, I can't see this keeping people past the year mark. And now we are to the point where the only system that has been left out of the game is invasions. Are you happy with the point that we are at with this game? Some might say yes, and I would argue to say that the majority of people would be content. But I do not think that without the invasion system, these games would be to the height that players hold them. I think the invasion systems add something special that not a lot of other games of this caliber, or even a lot of PvP-centered games, really hone in on. These games are some games that have existed far beyond what they should have. There are still people invading in Dark Souls 1, for crying out loud, and there are still new mods and stuff being made that are expanding on these systems. Just this week, we had a mod come out where you can use an item and it will scan through every single invadable area in Dark Souls 1, making the invading experience better. That's right, people aren't actively trying to get away from invasions. They are wanting to make them more often, because the people that are playing those games these days are people that enjoy that content.
Yeah, boy.
The people that stick through these games for years are the people that enjoy this kind of content. And while, yes, I have heard the argument be made that FromSoftware could probably bring in a larger mainstream audience if the invasion systems were not in this game. They could also bring in a larger mainstream audience if the difficulty of these games were toned down or they added difficulty sliders. they could do a lot of things that would bring in a mainstream audience more than what they do. But at this point, they are 5 games into working through Invasion systems. Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1 through 3, and Bloodborne. And they're not stopping with Elden Ring. This is obviously something that is in their creative vision. This is something that they want from their games, along with the high difficulty that these games are notorious for. So, at the end of the day, it's artistic vision that these systems be implemented in some capacity, and they're still trying to figure out what the best route to go with these systems are. The Invasion systems give something so unique to these games, and they give it a life beyond its years, with the environments themselves becoming a battleground. There is a good thing that both the Invasion systems in these games and Battle Royales have in common, and that is the fact that the map is just as important as the fighting itself, where PvE and PvP intermingle. That is something that just arenas cannot grasp. And it is something that makes every experience different. You never know if it's going to be a solo player or a group of players. You never know where they're going to be on the map. You never know what enemies they've already vanquished or what they're engaged in combat with at that moment. You don't know what items they're bringing. You don't know what builds they have brought to fight the enemies. And now you are one of those enemies. It is just such an organic and honestly lovely experience when done properly, that it's something that can't be replicated through any other system other than Invasions. And I understand there's a sect of the player base out there that would love to just be able to play through these games without having to worry about this. And they do have options for you. There's always been offline mode. But at the end of the day, if you're not willing to engage in the community that FromSoftware is trying to build, maybe you just have to take the honest truth that these games just aren't for you. Maybe it's just something that if you want this actively removed from the game because you dislike it that much, maybe it's just not your thing. So Tentacrew, I ask you, what do you think of the Invasion systems? Are they stuff that you enjoy and you understand why FromSoftware keeps them into the games? Do you just put up with them just because you enjoyed the experience of the game itself enough that it doesn't detract from you wanting to play it? Or is it something that completely ruins your experience every time it happens and you wish, even after everything that I've said, it was still removed? Let me know down in the comments below. Also, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit a like and maybe subscribe to the channel. We do a lot of this kind of content through the channel. We also live stream these games very often. If you dislike the video, please dislike it as well. Let me know. So much love, Tentacrew. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Much love. Bye-bye.